Yes, we're doing it. This is episode 24. I did mess up yesterday. Yesterday was actually 23, but that's okay. And it starts something like this. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. I hope that you're doing well, and I hope that wherever you are is doing good for you. My friends, this is episode 24, and today I have a good friend of mine. His name is Steve Vil. Steve Vil is a magician. He has been writing and editing for Phantasma Magic for some time, as well as other major publications. And he edits magic teaching instructions. And he's done it for many, many different platforms. He's also going to be coming on and talking about his new band, which I'm very excited to hear about. He just put out an album, and I think he's putting out another album pretty soon. And then on top of that, let's see, what else? He's into Rubik's Cubes. Loves Rubik's Cubes. So maybe we'll get to see some of his cool Rubik's Cubes. So I'm just going to find out where he's at. We are live now. And I think I already tagged him in the post. And is that Steve? Who's this? That's Sam. Hey, Sam, I would love to have you on the show in the future if you'd like to come on. I'm doing 365 podcasts, all long form in 1 year. Why? Because I'm crazy like that. And I think it's a massive, awesome challenge to give yourself. Good morning, Betty Joe. I hope that you had good news. We spoke yesterday very briefly. And, hey, man, do you want to do an episode with me? That's so funny. I just said, yes, let's do it. Steve is here. Let's pop Steve in. We're going to start the show. Here we go, folks. I'm so excited to have Steve in. Good friend of mine. I've known him for years. We used to work together at Phantasma Magic. And this sun is kicking my, I'm about to move. We're going to move. Good morning, Steve Vil. How are you doing today, sir?
Good morning, Paul David Carpenter. I am good, and how are you?
I'm doing amazing, friend. It's great to have you. Thank you for being on the show today. I truly appreciate it. It's a bit weird to have you on a quote-unquote show because we have these conversations quite often. So, but as I've said in the beginning of my podcast world thing that I'm doing now is that many times I have awesome conversations with friends, and then in the middle of the conversation or at the end, we always say, God, I wish I would have recorded this because it was so good. We talked about so many great things. So that's what today's going to be. That's what I say. So my friend Steve Vil, I did a bit of an intro, but if you wouldn't mind, tell us, who are you, where you come from, what do you do? Let us know.
My name is Steve Vil. I am an industrial music musician. I was going to wear a hat because my hair is like really gross, but I think I am going to wear a hat.
You're fine either way, whatever you want. You're beautiful. You're beautiful either way.
But I'm the singer and main instrumentalist for Elektrikill, and this is my first album, Monsters.
Nice. You can't see it very well, but it's
plastic off because you can't see it either. All right, there we go.
Yeah, I love the cover.
Thanks.
I love the cover. It reminds me of what was this movie? The one with the rabbit, the one where he time travels and stuff. The crazy, awesome movie. What was that called?
I don't know.
Donnie Darko. Reminds me of Donnie Darko.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I love Donnie.
A very Donnie Darko feel. Very cool. Very, very cool.
And then I record and perform under the name Elektrikill, and this is my album Monsters. And that's the logo on the CD.
Very cool. I like this.
Thanks.
So what was the impetus? What was the want to get into doing music? And because when we met through magic. We met at Phantasma Magic when I worked at Phantasma in New York. Roger Dreyer, shout out to that guy. Listen, man, Roger's had his moments, ups and downs, like we all have in this life, you know. So it doesn't matter. I love Roger. But nonetheless, that's where we met. And when we met there, you were working as an editor for Magic instruction type manuals and stuff like that. But also know you because you're totally into Rubik's Cubes.
Yes, I are.
Yes, you are.
That was one of my favorite projects when I worked at Phantasma. Was we got the Rubik's license and I got to create a whole bunch of magic tricks. Oh yeah, I got to create a whole bunch of magic tricks for Rubik. So like I was really excited to be part of Rubik.
I didn't know this at all about Phantasma getting that deal. That's one thing you have to say about Roger Dreyer. I know you can say whatever you want, but the man is a licensing deal genius. The guy knows how to get licensing deals. That's his thing. I mean, he even got a deal with Marvel at one point to do magic tricks based on some of the performing characters and stuff like that, right?
They just released a whole bunch of Marvel magic sets and stuff that I wrote the instruction manuals for. Yeah, right before I left. That was my last project with Phantasma, was doing the instruction manuals and helping create the Marvel magic sets.
That's like, so okay, so this is actually really interesting for me, right? Because like it's like almost getting to be part of like the movie Toys, or the movie Big with Tom Hanks, where he gets to be in the room with the people and they're deciding on new tricks and new things. That's gotta be like super fun to do, and to get to be the guy that gets to be the one that makes the tricks that go along, and then what you're doing is because I'm sure, maybe I'm wrong, but basically you're using every magic trick set type gimmicks, right? Maybe the coin with the little holder, and then you put the needles through it, but instead it's going to be the Captain America coin holder thing, kind of thing, but that in itself is got to be fun to do, like to get to pick what's going to be who.
It should have been fun.
I'm sorry, because I'm thinking like the boomerangs, like a Wonder Woman's boomerang, right? Doesn't she have a boomerang?
We didn't do a Wonder Woman set. It was Marvel.
But
Wonder Woman's DC.
Sorry, that's DC. Right, yeah, right.
We did Black Panther, Spider-Man, and who's the other one? Spider-Man, Black Panther, and Doctor Strange.
That's still all very cool. And you had to pick
anything.
And you have to pick the tricks that go along with the character, right? I mean, on some level, you would want, right? So that it seems like, yeah, right?
Right. The linking sling rings for, Doctor Strange and stuff like that, yeah. But like I said,
it should have been fun.
It should have been fun.
And that's the other side of Roger Dreyer. Love Roger, bro. I love Roger. But nonetheless, it happens. Look, we're getting some comments here already. David Charles is saying hello. Sam, yes, next week's perfect. So, how long or how did you get into editing magic stuff? And then how do you, I spoke to someone who got into radio and she had never done radio in her life, and all of a sudden she's like bloop and she was doing radio. So how do you get a job making tricks for sets of that's for some people that's like the ultimate dream job. Like for someone who's a magician or someone who really is into magic or whatever, that would be a super dream job, So how did that happen?
I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a super dream job. How I got into it was I was friends with Angelo Carbone, who invented Pretenia, and I had invented a few tricks of my own. So I showed them to Angelo, and Angelo thought that they were worth it enough to show to Roger. So I showed them to Roger, and he manufactured a few of my tricks, but that was basically how I got in, was that he asked me to, you know, do it based on the fact that, you know, I wasn't, he basically considered me an acolyte of Angelo, and he loved Angelo. So
Yeah,
he wanted me
he's
to.
always been a big fan of Angelo. Angelo, huge shout out to Angelo Carbone. One of my very close friends. I'm tagging him in the video, as a matter of fact, just to say hello, so maybe he comes and watch. But my God, what a genius! For those of you,
I haven't worked in the magic industry in 6 months now. So
yeah, well, that's nothing comparatively to like the years that you gave to the craft and to all the people that have learned on some level from the tricks that you've kind of created on one level, right? And on another level, the lessons that they were learning, how to do the trick, the pattern, it came from you. You're that guy. That's kind of cool, dude. I'm sorry. You might not be like, it wasn't that great, but I was watching, and I mentioned this yesterday, I watched this video from Rodney Mullen, the guy who created most of the street tricks in the 70s and 80s. Very close friends with Tony Hawk. But this guy was doing like cool, crazy flips and stuff on his board on the ground, right? And he was 10 years, he was #1. But he's like, at the end of the video, or close to the end of the video, he's like, you know, out of everything that I've done, the thing that really hits home is the legacy that I've left when I see other people doing the tricks that I created. And so there's a legacy that you've created without knowing it, or maybe you do know it, but there's a bunch of kids all over the world that read the words that you wrote and the pattern that you wrote, and they're probably doing that pattern because they don't know how to do pattern yet. So there's probably like hundreds of kids running around the world speaking Steve Vil without even knowing it.
And it's like the same thing with my music and my album. I just got like a whole bunch of like really amazing reviews on the album, and it's just like, it doesn't connect. Like I don't really have an ego like that. You know what I mean? And it's like one of the big issues that I have promoting my music is that I don't know how to talk about myself. So it's just like, anytime I try to write something to talk about myself or talk about the album or something, I'm like, I feel like I sound like a douche. You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's really hard to sell myself. That's why I'm looking for a record company right now, because I don't know how to sell myself. I really don't, because I'm not one of those people who's like, Steve Vil is the best at this thing that he does, and it's just,
it's, you know,
I can't do that. I can't.
And what it comes down to is a 90s mentality is what you're dealing with, right? Because you're a 90s kid, you're an X kid, right? So basically what it comes down to is when we were growing up, selling out was bad. Like that was our thing. Like if you're a sellout, bro? I mean, you got sponsored, bro? You're gross. I remember it. I remember it like physically feeling it in my body, where I was like, oh, you got sponsored. That's not cool. Look, Angelo joined. Hi, Angelo. Love you. Hope you're doing well. We were talking about you and wanted to say that we love you. Nonetheless, so yeah, that idea, you know what I'm getting at? That this idea of oh man, it's just so beautiful what we're talking about, Steve. And what you're saying is like, I don't know how to express or how to get other people to want to buy my thing, right? Because it feels weird being a salesman. So I'm going to try and help you as best I can here, because I've seen and I've heard something recently that was about this. If you had a piece of food, something that's really good that you made, an empanada, Kentucky Fried Chicken, I don't know, whatever. But it's something that's food. It nourishes people, right? And you made it, and people start writing you letters, and they're like, dude, this stuff is really good. And I've eaten it, and it's really good. That in itself should be the filling moment, right? That should be.
And see that's the thing. It's like I have had those moments with the music where tons of magazines and stuff that deal with industrial music have like one guy said that my album was in his top 10 albums for the year, that my talent was on a level not often heard. Somebody else said it was contender for album of the year in industrial music. And I'm just like, I'm really flattered, but I don't know how to turn around and be like, I wrote the letter to the record company, and then I had to run it past my PR guy and be like, like, is this okay? Please tell me if this sounds douchey or anything like that. Really, because I have a hard time writing about myself. I have a hard time,
So, are you doing anything?
not.
Are you doing
cool?
That's fine. That's fine. You don't have to be. You don't have to be. But you can play cool, and that's all that matters, right? Like in the photo that I used.
Play cool. I don't know how to. Stop it. I don't know how to play cool.
Stop it. That's not true. Because there's a photo of you that I posted where you're smelling that flower and you have this makeup on and you're in character. That's playing cool, friend. That's playing cool. Period. So if you can play that character on, like for instance, short form content, the coolest thing I've seen for musicians to do is to pretend to be all the characters in a studio. And so you sit down like you are today in this character and you're in front of the producer board, and then you hear a knock on the door, camera flips over, and it's you in character with the makeup, and you're like, hey bro, I'm here to record for Elektrikill. And then these guys like, and then you do a shot back to you and you're like, okay, Elektrikill. And he's like, yeah, man, I gave you the track, push play. And then the guy, you push play. And then the next scene is you in front of a camera singing the songs in character. Now, what does that do for the audience? It brings them into the session. Even though it's fake, even though it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, you're playing all the characters, the people at home feel that they came into the studio with you and met the character that you are and also got to meet the real you, the producer. So then they go, oh, he's playing a character. That's not really him. That's just the guy on stage. I want to go see the guy on stage. That's what they go through. That's the mental process that happens when they see it. And every single like TikTok guy that's out there that's making any salt and money right now, and I'm talking millions of dollars, and getting signed to labels and getting to do tours, are guys that are doing this thing. Literally, I know one guy in particular, he's a rapper, and he's made an entire career on TikTok doing those style videos. And he does different ones. He has a weird brother that makes a flute out of a carrot, and he plays the flute carrot, right? And he plays that in one of his rap songs. And then he's like, so he comes in, the guy's there, and it's all him, the same person. And he walks in, he's like, hey, you ready to record today? He goes, yeah. And he goes, what's your weird brother doing? And then he's like, sitting there with a drill inside the carrot, He's like, oh, it's just my weird brother, dude. He thinks he can make instruments with carrots. And then he puts the song on, and the brother in the song goes, and then he looks at the producer, and the producer's all freaking out. I can't believe my brother joined in. And then the rapper's like, no, let him. And then it becomes part of the song.
Right.
And so that mentality is what you need to play with. In that kind of like playful world that's not so real, but I'm still showing you what I want to do and what I am and who we are and what the style and vibe is. Bro, you'll fly through the roof on TikTok if you start making videos like that. And they're not hard to make. I made some with my friend Metal Art Master. If you haven't seen any of those things, it's super funny and great. And there's a lot of messages here. But nonetheless, let's run through messages real quick. Fallen Angel, Requiem are my favorite tracks on Steve's latest album. Love them. Oh, hello. Erica Marie jokes, is laughing. She says, flute carrot. And then Anne says, I need my shakachi. What the? Shakahachi to become? What is that?
Ow.
And you just freaked me out. Please fix that. Okay. And so, but that would be my best, if I can give you any advice on how to like promote without promoting, without being like up in the camera and be like, yo, I'm the best rapper in the world. My name's Tom McDonald. I sold 15 billion albums. Come watch my next track with me and my girlfriend Nova. With my,
All right,
I don't know if you know who.
hold on one sec. Hold on one sec. Let's try this. I'm Steve Vil of Elektrikill, and this is my flute.
So good. Oh my God. If you do not take the video that we are making today and take that and only that and make that into a freaking reel, dude, that it's for the people who know, and you tag the guy who does the carrot flute videos in the video that you just made. Please, it's stupid stuff like that that works. And and then the other part that I might give to you is like, any amount of thinking about it is the worst thing to do. Like, I would not be doing this podcast on a daily basis and garnishing a following. I wouldn't be doing it if I was like, oh, I'm in my backyard. Oh, I only have my camera. Oh, I only have my phone. Oh, it's only on Facebook. I would never start. And just because of this, I've had people privately send me messages saying they want to send me money, which is like mind blowing. And I weirdly, even though I need it, what do I say to the person? I'm like, no, don't give me your money. Just keep watching the videos. Just keep promoting. Just keep sharing. That's worth so much more than the money. Like, if everybody right now
do both, Paul.
What's that?
I said they can do both, Paul. Send me money and promote the video.
Hey, that goes back to you, Steve. In the same way that you are somewhat held back by it, right? You're held back by, I need a record label kind of thing. It's the same thing with me.
But see, there are things that like I'm Poe. So there are things that like I literally can't afford to do without record company backing. Like, I would love to press my first album on vinyl, and I don't have the money to press it on vinyl. So that's where a record company would come in and
well, so then for me again, I don't have the money. I want to find a way to make it happen.
I would love to tour, and I can't
go to Jack
that.
White. I would go to Jack White from the White Stripes. He has his own company printing albums. He absolutely adores new music, and would absolutely adore your album. And then you say to him, yo, I'm Poe. You rich. Print my shit, yo. And then he'll be like, yo, I'm going to print your shit, yo. Because he would. Because he's weird. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, there's no reason that you can't do anything. There's only, I'm creating a reason that I can't make it happen, is what you've done so far. And I'm sorry, I love you, but I want this to be about empowerment and doing. And so,
well, I am doing. I'm sending the album out to record companies.
Good.
I hired a PR firm. So yeah, no, I am doing. I hired the PR firm because I can't do that myself. So
and that's a huge lesson. And that's a huge lesson for everybody who's listening. That is this: if you don't know how to do it, find someone who does, who's better at it than you. Period. And if it costs you money, pay the money to do it. Because otherwise, you're going to go through massive amounts of lessons and trials and tribulations of not doing it correctly, of not doing this right, wrong, blah, blah, blah. And then before you know it, you have to redo stuff. You could have just done the thing and paid the fucking $3,000 and get it done with. Save up the money, find a way to do it. If not, the guy who's a PR guy doesn't want to do it, then you do something else. You sweep his floor. You do something so that you get what you need, period. And that's the same attitude and approach that I'm saying with the Jack White thing. I don't know if you know that Jack White has his own printing press. Like, it's a big thing for him. Okay. That's what he has, a big record company in Tennessee, Nashville, I believe, and he prints on vinyl. That's his thing. Like, he's a big vinyl head. So I think if you were to write to that company, straight to him, like, care of Jack White, yo, what's up? Straight up. And then start making phone calls. Call the guy, leave a message, write the email. Hey man, my name's Steve. Go find him on Instagram. Send him a DM. He's not famous right now.
Sure,
In the sense
he
that
is.
he's not famous right now in the sense that he's not on TV today. He's not on the Jack White, the White Strip. You don't hear it today. You might hear that with 60 Seconds to Mars. You might hear that with one or the other. I hear that with your album soon. But nonetheless, you see what I'm saying, right? Let's get back. Let's get back to the impetus on wanting to do this album. How long was it before like you were like, yo, was it partly the getting and having issues at Phantasma that kind of drove you towards this music thing? Or were you always doing the music?
It's something that I've always done. I've always been in bands, like ever since I was a teenager. It's actually funny because I fell out of magic for a really long time. I did magic as a kid, and then when I was a teenager, I got into music, and for some reason in my head they couldn't coexist, so magic went out the window, and then I started playing keyboards. My parents bought a piano, and I started taking lessons, and then I bought my first synthesizers and started making music. And when I let me see.
And has your stuff always been industrial based? Sorry. I said, has your stuff
my first industrial band was Signal to Noise, and then in 2011 I started doing movie soundtracks. And
say that again? Say that again? You started doing movie set tracks?
Soundtracks. Movie soundtracks.
Whoa. Okay, that's super interesting to me. What do you mean? And what kind of movies? Were they short films? Were they big movies? Were they whoa?
Well, I did. I had gotten a role in a horror movie called The Pizza Man, about a pizza man who murdered people and then made them into sausage. And I had auditioned for the movie like on a whim. Like it was just funny because it was just like a friend of mine had already been cast in the movie, and he told me about it. He was like, he said, no, they're casting movie. He goes, there's open auditions. Come on down. He goes, there's only one part left. You're a little young for it, but try out for it. And I was just like, I thought it would be a good story. I just thought it would be a good story for me to say like, hey, you know, I auditioned for a movie once, never thinking I'd get the part because I was too young for it and everything else. And so a bunch of like really old guys showed up, and me, and everybody went and auditioned, and afterwards they called me and told me that I got the part, that I nailed it, and that they would just make me look old. So when they shot the movie, they put a whole bunch of makeup on me. Like they did that thing where they stretch your skin and then they put the stuff on it and then they let it go and it makes you look wrinkly, and they put gray in my hair. And so I did the you know, I filmed the part. And then afterwards, when they were going into post-production, the guy who was originally going to do the music backed out, and he had done some of the music, but he didn't get it all done. And so the director said to me, he was like, well, you're the only other musician I know. Do you want to finish the music for the movie? And I was just like, yeah, sure. Because I was already in it. I was already involved.
Already part of the production.
So, yeah. So I did that. And that led to me doing music for a couple other movies. The biggest production that I did was Coma, which was directed by he makes movies for Shudder. He just did the movie Slapface. Jeremiah Kipp.
Oh wow.
Was
wait, you know Jeremiah Kipp? Yeah,
I scored his movie Coma. Yeah.
Oh, because I know Jeremiah Kipp.
Okay, yeah.
That's so weird. That's just such a random connect. Yeah, super small world. Wow. Okay, so then you did other films after that, and you were kind of like, or those.
This is where life gets funny because Ogre from Skinny Puppy, the band Skinny Puppy, who I have always been a fan of.
Great band.
He's a magician too, and
No
I
way.
met him.
No
Yeah,
way.
and I met him through magic, and he and I became really good friends. And he kind of wanted me to be like, he kind of wanted me to be like his magic mentor, because it was the same story with him where he had been a magician when he was a kid, and then he got out of magic to do music, and then once he became successful in music, he wanted to do magic again.
This is so crazy, Steve. What a beautiful story.
He and I became friends, and the first time we met in person was I went to go see Skinny Puppy in Maryland, and I picked him up and we went magic shopping, and then we went to the club, and I went in with him to do sound check. So the club was completely empty, and it was just Skinny Puppy on stage doing sound check, and I'm standing in the middle of the floor of a stinky beer-soaked cigarette bar. You know how like music clubs have that smell? They all have the same smell. And that was the impetus where I hadn't really been in a band. I hadn't really done music for a while, and then I just was in there with Ogre, and I smelled that smell, and I was like, oh, I miss this
smell.
And then right around that same time, my best friend Misha Ferrone, who is now an actor in his own right, he called me up, and we had been in bands together, and it didn't end well, and but we still, we were best friends. So he called me up. He was like, hey, I'm sorry the way our old band ended. Let's do it again. And so, it was just kind of like the perfect storm of, me meeting Ogre, me wanting to do it again, and out of a clear blue sky, Misha wanting to do it again too, and calling me up and being like, let's do this. So I bought all the synthesizers, and we formed, Misha and I and our other old guitarist basically formed a new version of our old band, where it was industrial metal, kind of like along the lines of Death Stars or Lord of the Lost, or Rammstein, I guess, is somebody that most people would know.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that fell apart again, and I just decided to take it solo. So so then I recorded my first album, Monsters. A little more than half the songs were songs that we had done with Elektrikill that I reworked to just be synthesizer-based songs. A lot of these started life as industrial metal songs that just became industrial songs. And then once I had what I thought was the finished version, I sent it to Ogre and said, comments? And Ogre called me up and he was like, no. So he gave me a lot of like mixing advice and things
that's so cool.
So he gave me a lot of mixing advice, and he really helped me form the album into what it was. Did you
credits for him? Did you put credit? Did you put credits for him in your album cover or something?
Yeah, I thanked him. I thanked him along with all the other people I thanked. Let me see. Yeah, I thanked my partner first, and then I thanked him second, and then third is Josh Balls, who is the keyboard player for Motionless in White. He owns a club up in Scranton, and he just absolutely loves what I do, and most of the shows that I've played so far have been at his club. So he was another person who was really there at the beginning and really kind of helped me, get back into it hard. He didn't, he loves the album and stuff like that. He's not really having bands right now, but his club Noir in Scranton, if you're in the Scranton area and you want to go to a good gothic club, his club is amazing.
And that's Scranton, New Jersey, yes?
No,
Scranton,
I'm in New Jersey. Scranton's in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, sorry, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Scranton's where Joe Biden is from.
That's why I didn't know it.
And then I'm working on my new album, which will be called Propaganarchy. And
I like this cover.
It's going to have a little bit. Well, yeah, I wanted to make it look like a Russian propaganda poster.
It's so funny that you said that because I got North Korea as soon as you popped it up. Like a North Korean vibe, only because the statues look like they're like the very famous Chinese statues of the warriors. That there's a room full of the warriors.
That's the thing. It's like this is from an industrial park right down the road from me. This statue. It's like right in front of an industrial park.
Oh, wow.
And when I took a picture of it specifically, I was like, I need to use this for something because it's very industrial looking and it's very like.
Can you put it closer to the camera so we can see it a little more, like a little closer? Yeah. Yeah.
But this is literally right up the street for me. This isn't like a picture from the internet. I took this picture.
Yeah, no, but I love what you did here. I love what you did. You made the shadow in the back. I love what whoever did your work here with the graphics. It's absolutely beautiful. I love how you took the image and then made another of it in the back with the shadow. I love the gears. Right, it's just that's again another very cool vibey thing that you're coming up with there.
Well, I looked up Russian propaganda posters, and actually the color palette that I used was directly from a Russian propaganda poster.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But
no, it's very beautiful.
This album is going to be a little like the first album. There was like maybe like one or two songs that were like slightly political, but not like in a very direct way. This one is going to have much more political songs, much more direct. In fact, the song "Propagandarchy" is about how the news really isn't news anymore. Mm-hmm. That on both sides of the fence, it's trying to steer you in a direction, and it's just like nobody just that used to when we were younger, that used to be called an editorial. When somebody would give their opinion, that used to be an editorial. Everything is editorialized now. You don't get the news just in a nonpartisan way anymore. It's always, if you're watching Fox News, you're watching right-leaning news. If you're watching MSNBC, you're watching left-leaning news. There's no like news that's like straight up the middle where they're just like, we're reporting on things that happened without it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think that there is a it doesn't pay the bills, to be honest, right? And they figured that out like in the 80s.
No, I understand why it's become the dog and pony show that it has become.
Right.
But I think as citizens, and I think in any kind of effort whatsoever to reunite the country, because the country is very polarized right now, the news media needs to come together and be like, all right, we just need to report the news. Mm-hmm. It has to stop being like, okay, this is the news, and like this is why X is good and X is and Y is really bad. They're forcing opinions on people. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, people trust their news sources, and their news sources aren't always honest.
Right.
And
it's a very.
That's part of.
Go ahead. I was just going to say it's a Marxist ideology.
That's part of what the song "Propagandarchy" is about. And then I have a song called "Moral Combat" that's about how the religious right in the country really wants this to become a white Christian nation. It's all about Christian nationalism and how like book banning and things like that, and not teaching kids history the way that history happened, this sanitized, whitewashed version of what they want history to be for kids. And it's just like there are so many things that are happening in this country right now that are very dangerous. Mm-hmm. And I'm really coming out against a lot of those things. There's something that's a little, because I'm part of the LGBTQ community, and one of the things that's coming out that's very dangerous right now is like, there's this right-wing movement saying that, drag queens and trans people are trying to groom your children, gays are trying to groom your children and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a whole song on the album about religious figures who, I mean, you always see it on the news. Ex-religious figure, ex-politician has, been caught like molesting children and stuff. And it's like, you don't see these news reports about drag queens and trans people molesting kids. And so that, like, one of the songs is very specifically about priests molesting children, which is something that's been buried by the church for
it's actually
forever.
So if you want to get there's so many things you touched on just now that we could go over, and I think we will, because it's all very heavy subjects, Steve, super heavy subjects that we just and it's cool. I'm very stoked that you're bringing them up and that we're talking about them and that we're putting them out there in the world, because in the same way that Joe Rogan has just recently created this new comedy club. It's called The Mothership in Austin, Texas, where they want you to come to know that you're going to get rough, nasty, hardcore, absolutely destructive comedy. And if you can't handle it, don't walk through the door, period. We're going to ask you to leave, period. That's the vibe inside this place. And it is creating this massive comeback of real comedy. And in the same way that you're expressing through your music and through your thoughts what it is that's happening. So I feel a lot of the leftist ideology, the socialist ideology, is a Marxist ideology. And if you look at the way that Marxism is used to destroy the family home, to destroy the mother, the father, and the central unit, it's what we're dealing with today. We're seeing the idea that, and I'm not saying it has to be white American, but I do believe on some level, for the continuation of the human ideology or ideal, the only way we're going to survive is if men and women have children. Now, are there ways in today's world where we don't necessarily need that to be? Yeah. Can that?
I didn't write any songs about that.
No, I know you didn't. I know you didn't. But on some level, what you're dealing with is these terms. This is the base level of what you're dealing with. It's based on transhumanism. I've been talking about this on almost every episode with everybody who comes in, because on some level, the Marxist ideology, the idea of also here, and we're going to get real crazy, the SS ideology, this eugenics ideology, is where we're headed right now. And that goes to an idea where everything can be. There is no line of ethics or morals anymore. And so, because ethics and morals are only a finger pointing at me from society that tells me that I can't be the thing I want to be. And so the more that we head towards that direction, the more that we're going to head towards the idea, and I've said this many times before, where I don't like the color of the shirt you're wearing, it offends me. I don't like the things you're saying, they offend me. So now everybody's wearing gray and everybody has to be silent, and we're all being videotaped and telling on each other.
But you know what? It's the older generation that has that. I mean, the younger generation, that Generation Z, they don't give a crap about any of that stuff. I remember being in high school and being called a whole bunch of gay slurs, and that was before I was even out, because the other kids could clock it.
Sure.
So I always got called gay slurs and stuff and stuff in high school and things like that. And it's like now, if a kid wants to go to school wearing a pride sweatshirt or something like that, they can. The other kids are just like, they're just like, all right, cool, you're gay. Nobody cares.
Yeah,
and that's like.
But isn't that part of again? this idea that we must be all inclusive. There's also the opposite of that, where there are parents who are like, yo, dude, I don't want to have my whatever. And we're not talking teens. We're not talking about high school, but we're talking about, you know, middle school and young children at the age of 4, 5, and 6 saying, choose your gender. Or, you know, let's talk about masturbation. Like, that doesn't really need to be happening.
Doing that, Paul.
No, actually,
Nobody's doing.
no, but there are actually people doing that. And if we want, and I'm not trying to have a fight here with you, there are people that are fighting about it. There are parents that at PTA meetings that are flipping out about this, and that their kids.
Yeah, there are parents that are flipping out about things like I remember one time seeing a parent at a PTA meeting flipping out because one of the teachers had rainbows on the chalkboard, and
Right.
she equated that with LGBTQ, and it was just rainbows.
Right. So, what?
Or
Yes.
saying that
Hold
our
on.
classroom is a family, and the parent was flipping out like, we're the only family my child needs, and it's just like,
right. No, and this is once again, Steve. Once again, your music and your thoughts are tapping hardcore at the glass of what we're talking about, because what we're talking about are these glass ceilings, these fake ceilings the society places in front of each other. And this is why I've said, as of recently, I've become a transhumanist. And it's the weirdest thing to say, because I've been against transhumanism forever in my life. But the closer and closer that we get to it, and the more and more that we get closer to a super artificial or general artificial intelligence, the more we will start to recognize how lame we are as a race. We haven't recognized it yet. We still think that we are greater than. We still think that we're better than the tree of life and that we're not part of it. We're pointing at it instead of saying that we are in it. And so once we recognize the fallible
the tree of life isn't going to stop growing, Paul, because there are gay people and transgender people.
No, stop.
The tree of life isn't going to stop. The tree of life isn't going to stop growing because a 4-year-old read a book about two male penguins that raised a baby. The tree of life isn't going to stop growing because the teenager read Fahrenheit 451, which ironically a whole bunch of parents wanted to burn.
No, I mean, look at what's going on now. You're right. Look at what's going on now. Like Huckleberry Finn, they've banned it from schools because it says the word nigger in the book. It says it in the book. I didn't make it up. I'm not saying it because I'm being negative or disrespectful or saying a word that isn't there. It's there. It was written by one of the most amazing writers of our time, and he was writing based on the era of the time and how people spoke at that time. If you can't handle that, that's not my fault, right? And in the same way, what I'm trying to say here is eugenics leads to transhumanism. Eugenics leads to, and what is eugenics? Eugenics is, in essence, the evolution of our human ideal. We are not perfect beings. We want to become.
I agree with you, David.
We want to become perfect, and perfect is all accepting, all knowing, and all being. And the only way for us to
see, I don't want to be as I said earlier, with not particularly having an ego. I don't want to be perfect. I want to live and let live. That's what I want to do.
What I mean is that I believe we have souls. I believe the essence of our souls are perfect, are of a place coming from perfection. There is nothing I need to be or do because I am awesome by being me. Just like you are awesome by being you. Just like anybody who's watching or anybody who ever watches this knows they are awesome by just being themselves, by just being alive while this is happening. That's it. Like that, and that alone is the picture. And if you can't grab onto that, you're fucked. And so what I'm trying to get at is that transhumanism leads to eugenics. If we go into the scale, a computer that is faster, smarter than 5,000 people is going to want to clean you and make you better. Take out your cancers, take out your any of your genetic markers that might be bad for you. It would want to clean you out to make you a better human. It would do the same thing with your mind. It would do the same thing with your tragic past and your trauma and drama that doesn't exist, but you think it does because we hold on to this bullshit based on societal norms and ideals. All of that's going to disappear in the next 5 to 6 years. People don't recognize that when we have something that thinks for itself for the first time other than us, we think other things think, but we don't know it yet. Oh, a dog thinks because it has emotions. A dolphin thinks because it has emotions. You see what I'm saying?
Dolphins are smarter than people.
Listen, they're intelligent beings. We get that, but they can't talk to us. Dolphin can't change its vocal cords and go, "Ah, you're a fucking asshole. Stop throwing plastic in the ocean, bitch," and fly off. It doesn't do that. But as soon as we create something that can do that, is the moment that we recognize that we are not so cool and so awesome in the destruction creation process of what we do.
So wait, because we don't understand dolphins' way of communication, their way of communication is invalid. So if you walked into Korea and you don't speak Korean, their way of communication is
no, that's not what I said.
What you said.
No, that's not what I said. I said they don't have the ability to communicate with us in a way that we can understand. I can go to Korea, have a translator, and understand the words. I cannot go to somebody and say, "Dog translator, translate dogs, and tell me what it means." But I could.
They do have people that understand what dolphins are saying.
They have an idea. It's not the actual. Even if words are translated, I still get the basic idea. I'm not, and when we look at whales, when we look at dogs, because there's a lot of people who are doing work with dogs.
Speaking of dogs, I have to let my dog in because she was communicating with me that she didn't want to be outside.
Yes, that is communication, but that is not.
Monkey sweetheart, come on in, baby.
Silly man, silly man, having fights with me over nothing, trying to get points across. All right, so there have been a lot of messages coming in here. I want to read some of them here. It says David Charles says most comedy years ago was offensive, but it was comedy. Transhumanism is okay if each individual has the control over their destiny, not what the NWO wants. Totally agree with that. I have many transgender friends. Christians, quote unquote, morals are a new thing. Morality has been around long before religion was created. Totally true. Normal is a perspective, and each person's perspective is valid. Also very true. So, what an intense conversation about coming from just wanting to share your ideas, because your ideas are so heavy, which is so beautiful, right? Because it's like real artists talk about heavy stuff. They don't talk about the fluff. Real artists, the ones that really want to make a dent.
They talk about propaganda.
No, they do. It's not, joking or not. It's true. It's what it is. It's like there's a great artists that were from the Russian era, where propaganda had stopped, and yet they were trying to make. There's two famous cartoonists. Then they are known for the longest production of a cartoon in the history of man. I think it's been 48 years. They still haven't produced the entire cartoon. It only comes out in snippets. They're probably going to die before the cartoon's ever done, but it has nothing to do with the cartoon whatsoever, right? It's about the actual process. It's about the whole documentary on these two people. Absolutely mind-blowing. They fought against Russia the entire time and created their own art the entire time. And they're known as the two best cartoonists in the world. And they have this very beautiful style that they use, which is a layered glass. So they'll use like 6 layers of glass, and that's how they are able to create these beautiful 3-dimensional 2D, pieces. But the reason I brought them up is because of the same struggle that they went through is the same struggle that you're willing to go through to be able to say to people, hey, wake up. Hey, let's start moving forward instead of staying in this very antiquated. It is an antiquated way of thinking. And so, you know, how do we wake people up to this new idea without saying, because many people will say, oh, the religious side of things, it's not religious, it's not this, it's not that, but actually, it's all there. The answers are all there. True acceptance of the divine, of the energy of creation, is to accept everything and everyone as it's happening, as though it's supposed to be happening in that manner. And anything that you fight against is nothing more than you trying to hold on to ideals and movements of a past watch, if you will. We're in the creation of a new watch, a new digitalized version of what we used to think of as the atomic clock that we use to mark our time. And we're changing that now. And so many people are afraid of the change, just like they were when the light came out, just like when they were when the radio came out, just like when they were when Morse code came out. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is that's new is scary.
Change is going to happen. Progress is going to happen, whether people like it or not. And they can fight it all they want, but in the end, progress is still going to happen. And that's what I believe is happening now, is that we're on the cusp of moving forward into something new, that the older generation and some of, you know, people our age and a little bit younger, who were raised with that kind of thinking, they don't understand it. They don't understand, you know, just like, you know, when it's like it happens in every generation. Every generation isn't understood by the previous generation. But now it's getting to a point where it's just like there's always been up until Generation Z, up until Gen Z, there hasn't been a generation that's been quite so accepting of everyone.
Yeah, you know, I also can understand, right, to just be playing devil's advocate here within the conversation. I can also understand, like, when, like, I've seen a TikTok video recently where a kid, he's like 13 years old, and he goes on the stage in front of a PTA meeting, and he's like, you know, I'm 13 now, but when I was 11 years old, I read this book, and I want to read it to you guys, you know. And it was at my library in my school, and it was one of those books that's like in the front, that's like scholastic, blah blah blah, you know, with the little gold on it or whatever, that kids look at and go, oh, that must be a good book because it has the thingy. And he starts to read it, and it's about two kids having sex together, reaching for a condom. And as he went to go check it out, the librarian says, would you like the MAGA version of it? Like and MAGA, not in the sense of like, you know, but manga, where it's basically the whole entire book, but in pictures. And so I think that kind of thing is not something that should happen.
When I was in grade school, when I was in 8th grade, a lot of the books in our library were donated. Mm-hmm. And we had Alfred Hitchcock Presents books.
Sure.
In my grade school. And when I was in 8th grade, one of the stories I read in an Alfred Hitchcock's Presents book was about a gay man who had been murdered with a dildo.
That's pretty intense. Now, here's my point here is, though, like, I read a book called The Day No Pigs Would Die. One of the most formative books of my life. Still to this day, I can almost remember every single aspect of that book. That's how intensely it fucked with my life. The story is about a boy who saves a cow. Neighbor comes over, gives him a pig. He becomes best friends with the pig. Dad owns an apple orchard. Dad's farm does bad. They kill pig. They eat killed pig during the winter. Now, one of the scenes in that is that they were trying to save the farm, and there's a whole chapter that is like the most descriptive form of sex that I've ever encountered in my life. And up to the blood running down her leg was one of the lines. So it fucked with my mind as a kid. Now, before I read that book, I was given a letter to go to my mom and dad, and it says, yo, this book is about to read is fucked up as fuck. It's got language. It's got stories of sex, all kinds of crazy shit. Is it okay if he reads it? And then it's up to my parents to then make that decision for me. And I think that, no offense, kind of a better way to go instead of letting a 10-year-old kid decide what he believes is the right thing to read at 10.
But see, you just made the point, is the individual parents should be deciding for the individual kids. Not a few parents who have a problem with it should be deciding that for all the kids. And that's
I agree with you.
But
I
see,
agree with you on
that's
either side.
the issue that we're in right now, is that you've got one or two parents who have been elected as representatives of all of the parents, not by the other parents, but by some like pact or somebody else that are supposed to decide for an entire school district what the kids can and can't read. Mm-hmm. And that's 99% based on those two parents' prejudices. And that's how a whole bunch of, like, that's how Dr. Seuss books got kicked out of schools. That's how a book about two male penguins raising a baby. No, let me finish. Stop cutting me off.
Sorry, no, I was just saying that's money-based. I believe that that's money-based, like coming from either the left or the right and then pushing those people into those and non-government organizations that then have, dollars to push certain ideals. And that's what I think you're talking about. I wasn't trying to cut you off. I was totally agreeing with you.
No. But no, you have these people who have declared themselves a morality for other parents. And that's the thing where I have a problem. Like I live in New Jersey, which is a very left, we're a very blue state. And it's just like my friend's daughter, she's part of the LGBTQ community, and she can go to school and she can express herself that way. She wouldn't be able to do that in Florida. You know what I mean? She wouldn't be able to read what she wants to read. She wouldn't be able to express herself the way she wants to express herself in Florida. She's lucky that she lives in New Jersey. And it's just, it's that kind of thing where you hear about these things happening where it's just like one or two parents have decided for an entire school district what all the kids are going to read instead of those kids' parents deciding what their kids are going to read. Maybe some kids' parents have a reason why they want their kid to read about two male penguins raising a baby penguin. Maybe they have some reason that they want their kid to read a book. Like, I remember being in 4th grade and reading Old Yeller, and Old Yeller fucked me up. And feeling like this is my favorite, right. This is my favorite story from high school. I went to Catholic school. We had to wear uniforms. We were taught by nuns. I took a music appreciation course my freshman year. 13 or 14 years old, right? Yeah, 13. 13.
Shout out to the line.
13. Hello. So I was 13 years old, freshman in high school, took a music appreciation course which was taught by a nun. When we got to the very, very antiquated textbook part of about electronic music. Now these textbooks were so old that like the only frame of reference they had for electronic music was Walter Carlos, who hadn't even transitioned to being Wendy Carlos. These books were so old that the following day, the very elderly and not altogether with it nun decided that the best way to teach us about electronic music was to show us a movie. So we come into class the next day. Bear in mind, I'm 13 years old, high school freshman. Walk into class, the movie projector's there, the shades are all drawn, the movie screen is down, and the teacher shows us a Clockwork Orange because
What?
Walter Carlos composed and performed the electronic music score for A Clockwork Orange. So the first time I ever saw A Clockwork Orange, I was a 13-year-old high school freshman in Catholic school, and it was shown to me by a nun.
The question is, did the nun even know what she was showing you? Which it doesn't.
I don't think she had any idea.
Because if she would have known that you guys were going to see men rape a woman, and the scenes of that movie are so insane. The beating up of the old man, all the crazy stuff, the eyeballs, and the making him watch all the movie. I mean, come on, bro.
Yeah,
what a movie to watch when you're 13 years old.
But I guess the point I'm trying to go back to is there are people in this country that are trying to take choices away from parents. Like, I remember, here's something I wanted to bring up before. I remember being in grade school, and all of our textbooks were teaching slavery as, okay, yeah, America went to Africa and got all these black people and brought them to America and made them work for free, but they got room and board and they got fed, and they used to go out and pick cotton, and they would sing all these great Negro spirituals, and they put it across like the slaves had a good old time, and they were happy to be in America, and they were happy to be serving their masters. And then Roots came out.
Where were you? Were you in school? North, south?
Yeah.
Where?
No.
Where?
No. In the north, but
okay.
It was just like
I was raised in Texas.
Our history books. Let me finish. In our history books, when I was a kid, we got this very sanitized version of what slavery was. We got this very sanitized version of who the early presidents were and things like that. You know, George Washington, I cannot tell a lie. I chopped down the cherry tree and he had wooden teeth, none of which were true. But we got this very sanitized version of what slavery was. And then when Roots came out, it was a class project that we all had to watch Roots. And then we saw the real horror of what slavery was, of the slaves being whipped and forced to have the names that the English names that American people gave to them. They weren't allowed to have their real name, like Kunta Kinte and things like that.
One of the most amazing scenes of all time. Yeah, great scene. LeVar
right,
Burton.
exactly.
Shout
and
out,
that's what right.
That was LeVar Burton, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. That was his first major role, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the unsanitized version of history. And it was like, that's what we should have been learning as kids. That slavery wasn't like some mutually symbiotic and beneficial thing to both the white people and the black people.
Right.
Which is how, but this is how they want to go backwards now.
So,
the
education system, what I'm saying is
they want to go backwards. They're talking about, they're making like buzzwords and they're making it sound really, kids in kindergarten are learning about critical race theory. Kids in kindergarten aren't learning about critical race theory. That's a college elective course. There's nobody in a grade school level or even a high school level that's learning about critical race theory. But they made it a boogeyman. Critical race theory is the new thing that parents have to be afraid. I have little chunks of carrot coming out of my teeth. They're trying to make critical race theory this boogeyman, and that parents have to be aware that your kids are now going to be made to feel guilty about slavery and stuff like that. And it's like, they're not going to be made to feel, my partner Logan, they're not going to be made to feel guilty about it, but they need to know that this is part of American history, that the reason that, African Americans are in this country is because of the effort of slavery.
Sure.
That you know, that in World War II, that Japanese people were put into basically American concentration camps
for 2 to 7
There
years. Yeah,
were all
100%.
yeah, there were all kinds of things that you know, the American government did, and that the American people did that weren't
That
good
they're still
for.
doing, Steve, that they're still doing, that they're still doing to this day. Declassification of
And
things
one of
that
the
are
things
coming
that
out
I find
like in the last.
hilarious.
Yeah, no, like I
One
said,
of the
declassification of things that have happened recently in life, where we now know that UFOs were real and that this was real and that was, you know. So, yes, there is no trust in the government because the government hasn't given us anything to feel trustworthy towards. Yet at the same time, this is by far, at least it was at one point, by far the greatest human experiment that we've ever done.
Well, see, what's happening right now
in common time, because I can't say that Rome didn't already do what we're doing now. During its rise and fall and rise and fall and rise and fall and rise and fall and fall and fall and rise and fall. So
right, see, that's what the people who are vehemently, and they happen to be the people with money in this country, but the people who are vehemently attached to the old ways of thinking and stuff like that, they're afraid of Gen Z, and they're afraid of Gen Z voting them out and ushering in this new, more accepting world where everybody just loves everybody and everybody just accepts everybody and everybody learns what they need to learn. They're terrified of these kids being educated. They're terrified of these kids being accepting because these people, they want the class divides, they want the race divides, they want, they want things like that, and they come at it from the point of view of like, well, America is a white nation and America's a Christian nation, and it's like, America was stolen from the Native Americans.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, Steve, we could that's I mean, now you're getting into like super conjecture, because if that's the case, every single place that there is anyone on the earth was stolen from somebody else. And if you look at the Spanish, and you look at,
people need to accept that as part of their histories. They can't just scrub history. That's the thing that people are trying to do. They're trying to scrub history, and you can't scrub history. You have to accept it as part of the nation's past. That what the settlers did was they came to this country and they pushed the indigenous people out of the way, and they said, "This is our country now," and they had no right to do that.
But Steve, we could go to any country and say the same thing about any country. Literally any country, all 198 of them, we can go to them and be like, yo, why are you here? You shouldn't be here. You took from indigenous people, or you are the indigenous people that were, and you took out and you killed everybody. Look at Australia and what England did to Australia. I mean,
yeah. But,
I mean,
but,
so then,
but
Anglo-Saxon Protestants, hold on. In that
they're in charge of everything, or think that they should be in charge of everything.
I need to interrupt. The people who were sent to Australia were all slaves. They had no choice where they went. They were kicked out of the country.
No. The people who were sent to Australia were not slaves. They were prisoners. It was a prison colony.
Prisoner colony.
Yeah.
Slave.
It was a Australia. No, prisoners aren't slaves.
Prisoners me. Do you know why? Do you know why they became prisoners?
And then they were incarcerated.
Why did they become prisoners?
Because they committed crimes.
What were the crimes that they committed that were not liked by the English? Thank you. It's sclavitude in a form of prisonership, in the same way that we do here in the United States.
Somebody that I hadn't heard from in ages just randomly started sending me messages, and it's just like, if you're on my Facebook page, can you see that I'm in the middle of an online interview right now? Like, what is going on that you're messaging me?
Yeah, they don't care. They don't care. They don't care. They do it to me too. I'm live and people call me and I'm like, why are you calling me? So let's go through some of these messages because there's a ton of stuff here. And by the way, Steve, I absolutely adore you and I thank you for your time and your energy. I thank you so much for giving all that you're giving from your heart and yourself. Thank you. Thank you.
Wait, David Charles. I was put into kindergarten a year early. So yeah, I was a high school freshman at 13. So I graduated high school when I was 17. My birthday falls in July, so I just turned 5. I should have, they should have waited me a year and started me in kindergarten as 6, but I had just turned 5 in July and I just made it under the wire to start kindergarten in September, they actually should have started me a year. So yeah, I was a high school freshman at 13. I graduated 8th grade at 12.
Same. So that happened to me as well because my birthday is August 27th, which is the first day of school. So wow. I was always the smallest kid in school, always, because I wasn't supposed to be in that group, but whatever. Yeah. And so let's go. So there's some more messages here. Christian morals. No, we already said that one. Steve Vil, we do not have a universal translator for all spiritual entities in this plane, is what Paul was trying to say. And that's kind of what I was expressing. Yes, we can understand, but we don't really fully understand. Walter Voorhees, which is, I'm guessing, a joke name, which is cool. But,
that's his real name. That's a friend of mine.
No way. Okay, so this guy says,
I know him in person. His name really is Walter Voorhees.
Voorhees
is a real last name. It wasn't just the name of a character.
No, I thought it was. So I thought he was, because I see the little cat and not a person, so whatever. So, but he says, oh my, who is this dude? Leftist is Marxist and gays aren't perfect. I'm out in the eyes. A drag queen is trans or are accepting theirs. Choices. Sounds like this dude would burn books. Agreed, Steven. No two people should make up what can and can be. I guess he's saying that I'm a angry human being that is against the great gays and transgenders. I guess that's what he's saying, which is, if you know anything about me.
Well, that's totally not true. Yeah.
Anyways, come on, please. Children can't consent. And this I agree with, and we agreed on that already. We said that it shouldn't be the child that's consenting. It should be the parent that's making the choice for the child. And then it's up to whatever rules and regulations when it comes to, I guess, child protective services, whether the parents are being good or not. I don't know what that means. That's hard to determine. Who are you to go into someone's home and tell them how to do something on some level? That's a little fucked up to me. So, but I do understand that, I don't know, maybe like beating a child isn't the right way either.
No. Nobody is suggesting that like their kids should be able to be like here's an example. Like, I remember being a kid and not being allowed to go into my parents' bathroom because when my dad would buy a new issue of Playboy, he would leave it in my parents' bathroom. But of course, being a kid, you're going to go into the bathroom and you're going to look at Playboy. But nobody's saying like, oh well, that should mean that all kids should have access to Playboy magazine.
Yeah, no, it's not. You were the one who broke the rule,
right?
So
right.
It's against,
exactly.
It's really
and
it's
kids
your fault. You broke the rule. You shouldn't have done it. You should have been reprimanded. You weren't because
they didn't do that. Right. Oh, and I was. But see, that's the thing. It's like one of the things that overprotective and overbearing parents don't understand is that the harder they push something away from their kid, the more the kid is going to want that. So if you tell a kid, like I remember being in school and like there was the Great Satanic Panic. And part of the Great Satanic Panic was Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep. It's a big one.
And when my mom told me that I wasn't allowed to play Dungeons and Dragons, the first thing I wanted to do was play Dungeons and Dragons.
Right. Sure. No, but that's a known psychological effect that happens with children that is a very well known documented idea, right? So that don't go to the cookie jar.
If you go into a school and you've got these two parents who have been elected by somebody on the school board, not by a group of parents in general,
right,
but by somebody on the school board has said, these two parents who are the most overbearing and overprotective helicopter parents that we could find in the entire school district, they're going to be the ones who decide what books that the kids for the entire school district are not going to be allowed to read. And then they hand down this 10 commandments carved in stone. Your kids cannot read these books. And it's, Fahrenheit 451, and it's Tom Sawyer and all these books.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing that those kids are going to do when they get that list is they're going to go find those books. It was like John Waters, the great
what you're saying. So then, in some way, you like the parents who are telling kids not to read books. Because they're gonna in essence make those kids go do the thing that they're not supposed to go do. So in essence, you want those parents around.
I'm not sure that banning anything is the way to get kids to read it.
No, that's not. I don't think that's what I meant by that. What I meant by that is going back to this ideal that everything is happening the way it's supposed to happen, the way it's happening. And as long as you can become okay with who they are, you can understand something better about yourself. More so the times when we find somebody who bothers us in our life, that's the thing that we need to work on. It's the thing that we know that is so wrong or whatever is the thing that we need to learn to accept even more.
Here's the thing. When I was growing up, I was indoctrinated into religion.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a religious person now. I consider myself to be agnostic at this point.
Okay.
So, when I was a kid, I was indoctrinated into religion. And I was made to feel guilty for having the same human desires and the same human foibles and doing the same human things that every other human being does. That's part of what religion does. Is it makes you feel guilty for being human. It wants you to aspire to a level that humans aren't able to achieve because they're humans. And it's holding you up to an Christianity, not necessarily Christianity itself, but religion makes you try to hold yourself up to an impossible standard. That just makes you feel like shit about yourself if you're really deep into it.
I think that's a very silver and golden apple approach look at a religion, in my opinion. But keep going.
Well, see, because I grew up LGBTQ. I grew up gay. And then,
because the doctrine of a man and woman, it can't be Steve, blah blah blah. I get it. Adam and got it.
Well, see, here's the thing. David, we know the difference between transvestite, transgender, and transsexual.
No, I think he was. Actually, there's been some really good comments here that I wanted to get into. So Darian said there were sentences from Europe prisoners that got sent to Australia. They weren't slaves.
Oh, I didn't see Darian's original.
Now, what I meant by that, and I want to clarify that point. What I meant by that is the same way that we treated the slaves in this country, that we then create the 14th Amendment where we ratify slavery. We're going to get back to your album. We ratify slavery, yet at the same time,
I'll plug my album.
But at the same time, we then, within that same amendment, state that if you commit a crime, you are still a slave. My second thing that I'd like to clarify was what we were talking about was the idea of taking over a country and how that's not right to do. And how those people who were the people who were coming from Europe to the United States, who were running away from persecution, who were running away from being slaves, to a monetary system they didn't want to be part of, and to a religious doctrine that they didn't want to be part of. That's who those people were that left that country, who came to this country. So people who were much like people, hold on,
oppressed the
people who were
indigenous people and had slaves.
So we'll go over that as well. But nonetheless, what I was getting at first was, do we look at the people who are Australians, the ones who were sent there, as whether they were slaves or whether they were prisoners?
It was a penal colony. It was a penal colony.
I know what it was. It was a penal colony based on people who didn't want to do what the English wanted them to do. They were sent there on crimes that were created based on the things that they didn't want to do. So they were slaves, whether you like it or not. It's the same way that slaves that were in the United States. We created the 14th Amendment only to put them back in jail. Who's the biggest people in jail? Blacks and browns. Who are the people without fatherless homes? Blacks and browns. Same thing we were trying to do in the first place. We attempted it. We didn't get it. We didn't get it the way we wanted it. We changed the laws, and we got it anyways. It's the same thing that's been going on. We're talking about a corrupt shit government, not the ideology of America. There's two different things we're dealing with here.
But see, there are a huge chunk of the citizenry in this country that does follow that mindset. Like I remember.
Follow which mindset? What do you mean? Like follow the mindset of the prototypical American man and woman? You must be Christian. You must be a Protestant kind of ideology. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that a lot of this country was built on the idea of having God first before doing anything else. It was the precipice of what the country was built upon. At one point, they wanted Hebrew to be the language of the United States, and that's, you know, can be fought about here and there. But there were people who brought it up, and
French was originally also another one. Yes, I think there was one vote away from we were all speaking French.
Yeah, exactly. And once again, the point here is that it was based on a religious ideology. The idea was.
Oh, me too, Dave.
No, what's that? No, I'm saying the country was built on a religious ideology. It was built on the idea of God first. So taking God out of the picture takes away what America is about on some level. The second part of what America was about was the supposed, and I put in massively supposed, the supposed acceptance of everyone. When in reality, the supposed acceptance of everyone was really a ideology into how do we get more people to come here and work so that we don't have to pay them and make it look good to them, and not have to treat them as quote-unquote slaves, but instead enslave them through our sociological ideology, which is we're better than you. You're Italian, so you're no good. You're Irish, so you're no good. You're this, so you're no good. Oh, you're Jewish, so you're no good. You're not good unless you are what came from the first that came here.
Right, and that's the thing. It's like a lot of these people who have this mindset in this country currently, it's like their ancestors came here during the 1930s. Like anybody who came through Ellis Island in the 1930s, they got a stamp of approval because it was just too many people. If you could get to America like on a floating door, you were approved to be a citizen in this country. My ancestors only go back as far as the 1930s in this country. So it's just kind of like, it's funny because I had relatives in the past who would have these conversations with me, and they would talk about, oh, the immigrants are what are ruining this country. And I would be like, I would say my uncle's, very Italian last name, and I would be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. What Native American tribe last name is that? It was always shocking to me when I would hear people who especially there's a new thing where it's just like members of the Latino community don't want to see other Latinos come to the United States, which is just so bizarre, to me. It's just like Latinos will come to the United States from other Latin American countries, and then when they get here, they're just like, oh, we need to keep the Mexicans out. Oh, we need to keep, and it's just like, but you're Mexican, and it's just, and it's just like, no, but I'm an American now, so I'm an American. I'm not Mexican. I'm Mexican by heritage, but I'm American now. We need to keep the Mexicans out. And it's just like, where does this come from?
That's patriotism. That's just slandered out patriotism. Period. That's all that is. And patriotism will make you do some crazy shit, right? All in the name of. And going back to something that David said, he said it had nothing to do with Christianity being part of the United States. It gave everybody, the Constitution gave everybody freedom of religion. And yes, I agree with that. But we need to also recognize that
it's not supposed to be a Christian nation.
We also, yes, exactly. But 80% of everybody who started this country were Christian and or Jewish. So it was open to interpretation.
Actually, 100% of the people who started this country were Native American.
Well, you're funny. Okay, and so I go back to asking you the same question I asked earlier, which I don't think I got an answer from, which is, do we get angry at the people who were on the ships who took over Australia?
Absolutely. We get angry at those people. We get angry at the people who came to this because, that there was a whole song that was written about how Australia should give the indigenous population their land back.
Yeah, of course, and the same way that, right. But like I said, we can go back to any country.
And the guy who wrote that song actually went into the Australian government.
Yeah. My question here is, we can go
being introduced on my album.
We could talk about like I said, to almost any country. Look at the Philippines. Look what Spain did in the Philippines. And that's an indoctrination, right? You go to Filipinos who have the last name Campos, which is a Spanish last name. You could do this over and over and over again. Look at the same thing in Vietnam. Look at the same thing in South Korea. Look at the same thing in Japan and China. Almost anywhere in the world, there's been some kind of man that has come in and taken over and done something to it, right? So David's jumping in and saying a bunch of stuff here.
White Anglo-Saxon Protestants.
Right.
It's always.
Well, it's not.
Yeah.
Once again, it comes from a Spanish ideal. The idea of taking over land and putting down a flag is a Spanish concept, and it then proliferated throughout the world. He says, David Charles comes in and says, well, the migrants from the early 1900s were accepted freely to the United States because they looked white no matter what their heritage was. Now, for all those brown and blacks colored immigrants, it's hard to read here, sorry. Now, all of those brown and black colored immigrants won't blend into well with the white community and therefore are shunned. No, I totally disagree with you, David. There were tons of white races that came to this country that were shunned, absolutely shunned from the moment they walked in the door. They were told
my grandfather on my father's side was Danish.
Yeah.
Very, very white, as you can tell, because I'm very, very white. And he had to change his last name. My last name is not my original family last name.
Yeah.
His name was originally Bolt Victor Fricky. No, Gilbert. It was originally Gilbert Bolt Fricky, and he changed his name to Victor Gilbert to be American, to have an American name, to be able to get a job in the United States. And he was he was Danish. He was very white, but Danish was not one of the white people that were, it was Irish and British and those were the whitey whites that America wanted. They didn't want, Danish people or Hungarian people.
No, they didn't want anybody who wasn't what they were, and if they weren't wealthy and they weren't from, that was it. Period. It was a wealth class growth moment. The Industrial Revolution It was a great documentary on this. For those who haven't seen it, it's called The Corporation. And it goes through a lot of what I'm talking about. But for instance, one of the main points in the film, or a very good point in the film, is that during the period of the freedom of the African American slaves, there were, I believe, 298 court cases that went to the Supreme Court. Of those, only 19 of them were American slaves that were looking to have their own entity, become their own person. Because at the time, the lawyers at the time had presented that the products had now become entities, and so that they wanted their products to become entities, i.e. their corporations became entities. And so out of 298 case courses, only 19 were African American. The rest were corporations that were changed.
You know what the holiday Juneteenth celebrates?
Juneteenth celebrates a very beautiful moment. There's a friend of mine, actually, Reginald. I'm going to tag him right now. Let me tell, because he's a phenomenal artist out of Houston. He's been doing some amazing work, both in doing. His name is.
I have two. We haven't talked about it.
Hold on. I want to hear about this. His name is Reginald Charles Adams. I'm tagging him now just so I can, since I'm talking about him. He is an artist in Houston who's been doing some beautiful works, but one of his real blowout pieces that was the thing was at the steps where it was actually spoken in Galveston to allow the slaves to know that they were free. He painted this amazing mural of all of these moments of the moment of the reading, the moment of black slaves in the Civil War, all these beautiful black African American people who came up from this moment, and so yes, I definitely know what Juneteenth is about.
Right, but Juneteenth happened 2 years after the slaves were actually free.
Yeah.
It took 2 years for Galveston, Texas, for somebody to bother to mention to Galveston, Texas, that the slaves were free. So
yeah.
for 2 years after the slaves were freed, slaves were still laboring under slavery in Texas.
100%. Yeah, 100%. There's still slavery today, Steve. All over the world. All over the world. All over the world.
There should not be.
So then let's go fight. Let's go kill all the slave masters around the world.
One really horrible form of slavery is human trafficking. And like one of the things I remember about working New York, which was one of the things that the construction workers on the bus would always talk about, and it just always made the hair on the back of my neck stand up, would be like, oh yeah, after work today we went to a rub and tug. What's a rub and tug? Oh, well, you go to a massage parlor, an Asian run massage parlor, and you get a massage and then they jerk you off. And it's just like, the women who work there, they didn't volunteer for this job. They didn't walk in and apply to be masseuses who jerked you off. They're slaves. They came to the United States for their freedom. They wanted to get away from the oppression, and when they got here, they got into a worse situation. Oh, you want to buy your freedom? Well, you basically have to be a prostitute to buy your freedom. No, and so there are very subtle and unfortunately somewhat socially accepted forms of slavery.
Once again, so now we're talking about 2 layers. We're not even talking about 1 layer anymore. Now we're talking about 2 and 3 layers, right? Because there's, first of all, the people who are trafficked, the people who are trafficking them, then the ones that are placing them into another form of slavery or some form of sclavitude where they're paying off some debt. And then on top of that, we're talking about the people who on some level accept it by using it.
Right.
So, I mean, now we're having to go after like a sloth of humanity and kill them off. Is that what we should do?
I didn't hear what you said because my.
No, I understand. No, it's understood. He's going to work and he has things to do. I understand. No worries.
I'm going to work too.
Oh, I understand. I understand. Oh God, we're all doing something. We're all doing something. I have to go somewhere as well after this, but nonetheless.
Right, but I can't hang on much longer.
Okay, no problem. No problem. If you want to get going, do you want to go now? Do you want me to go ahead and end it now? Or do you want to go ahead and like kind of cover up and end up the ties and tie it all together and come back to your album and talk about the new album that's going to come out, which is why we talked about everything that we talked about for the last 30 minutes.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna do a brief plug. So this is my album Monsters, which is currently available. You can purchase it through my Bandcamp site. So just go to Bandcamp, look up Elektrikill, you can stream it, and you can also purchase a physical copy. Also, it's available for streaming on Spotify, on Apple, on Amazon, on YouTube, anywhere that you can stream an album, you can stream it. And I'm currently working on what's going to be my new album called Propaganarchy.
So, okay, thank you. I placed that also in the comments for anybody who wants to check it out, and also in the description. I also put out your press release there as well, so everybody knows about it. Anybody who wants to go out and buy his album, please do. It's a phenomenal album. I've actually heard it myself. I've listened to it a couple times. I don't have a car per se. I live on a motorcycle, so I don't really listen to music very often on my thing. So there's a couple questions. Some people want some answers. So let's say hello to some people here, and let's hear the last things here. So race is always being assumed. Names were changed so often because of pronunciation acceptance. Since so many cultures and languages were blending, still to this day, people change their names to feel accepted. Yes, Darian, that's true. One, that's a form of forced acceptance. Like you can't, that's not really accepting somebody, right? And so it shouldn't be done, but it was done because people wanted to fit in. And that's not right either. Like you can't just fit in and then think, oh, everything's okay. At least that's my opinion, because that's just not going to work either, because at one point or another, somebody will feel bad. So then Usama...
It's exactly the same thing as people who have plastic surgery to fit the ideal of what is classically beautiful. And it's just like, you don't look classically beautiful, you look like you had plastic surgery.
Yep. Osama says, can you help me? I don't know what you want help with. David Charles comes back and says, I was one of only 5 white people that went to the first Sugar Hill Gang concert, hung out and got drunk with Evelyn Champagne King in 1979, and I used to party with 8-time Olympia Lee Haney in 1970s. I don't know what that has to do with anything, David, other than accepting that you're accepting and a beautiful human being that likes to accept people. And I accept you for that. Osama Idrisi comes back and says, answer me, please. I don't know what I'm supposed to answer if you haven't given me a question. My name was changed, says Darren Sullivan. My original name was Russian. I'd wish anyone luck in saying it right, the right way.
I'm one quarter. My grandfather on my mother's side was Russian, so I can count to 30, I think, in Russian. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, yeah.
Did you say chestnuts? I could have sworn I heard
there is a number that sounds vaguely like chestnuts.
No. It definitely sounds like you were going chestnut.
Yeah. So, all right, I got to get going. Thank you for the interview, Paul.
Steve, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for coming on. And once again, thank you for being able to be so eloquent with the way that you feel about things and have this dialogue with me. I hope that other people can watch this and see that you and I may have some differing ideas here and there, but that doesn't mean that we don't have conversation. That doesn't mean that we don't have ideas, and that doesn't mean that we definitely don't have friendship and we share each other's goals and everything else, you know? So,
and that I have available.
album, so you got to get the album. And once again, it is in the description down below for anybody who wants to go see it, go listen to it, just go live stream it so that you can hear his music, and that gives him points and videos and links and all that good stuff. Like, share, subscribe. Steve, thank you so much for being here today. I thank you from the bottom of my heart, man.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see you soon, man.
Bye.
Bye. Oh my. Have I told you? Every day is going to be an amazing day. We're going to find something cool. We're going to have a conversation. We're going to try and figure things out. Because I don't think I have the answers, folks, by any means. I'm very on the fence. I'm very walkie the line here. And that doesn't mean that I'm like, oh, I'll be on either side of the conversation. That either. But I'm very much willing to learn. And I'm very much willing to hear other people's point of views. And I'm also very much willing to challenge other people's point of views. I have no qualm in that whatsoever, and asking for the other side of things. Darian comes back and says, much love, great to listen. Thank you for being today's guest. Awesome show. That was for you, Steve. He's sending love. And he says he's going to check out that album. So, my friends, I think episode 24. Oh, and by the way, I messed up. Yesterday was 23. Today was 24. Okay, so I got confused. Don't get angry. But let's end it out with this beautiful idea of don't hold back from doing the things that you really want to do. Like, you want to be an artist, go be an artist. That was the one thing. Learn to count in Russian. I'm gonna try. Which means I'm probably not gonna do it. But if you teach me, Darian, you call me on the phone, and I'll go to 10. I will learn how to say 1 to 10 in Russian for you. But I wanted to end this episode on this idea. In the same way that the guy from Skinny Puppies wanted to be a musician, which if you didn't hear about that story, he became friends with one of the band members from Skinny Puppies, and he always wanted to be a magician, but he became a musician first, which is super cool. And he became famous, and then he became wanted to go back to magic again, which I that's heartfelt for me just because I love magic, but it's also heartfelt for me because there was always something in the back of his head that he loved, that he kept in his pocket. And we all do this in some way, shape, or form. You know, so I think that that's a really beautiful thing to look at on today's episode is like, yo, don't let things pass by. If you have something you want to like start making, make it. Even if it's crap, even if it's in the back of your backyard, it doesn't matter. People will start watching, people will start listening, people will start sharing if what you're giving is good. And hopefully this is good. And hopefully this makes you aware that you're beautiful and awesome and that you can become more. And I am here to tell you, my friends, please, I beg you, go out into the world and do something nice for somebody else. And if you can't do something nice for yourself, it does start with you. And then number 2, go out, don't go, getting caught up in all the crazy stuff, because then you end up crazy, poopy, and that's not good. And number 3, if you would not mind, please like, share, subscribe, send this out to somebody who wants to see it. And with that, my friends, I love you all, and I thank you all, and I will see you all on the other side.